Hi folks, with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the notion that until wokeism and the woke sort of ideas took hold in the West, that the West was this hotbed, this seething hotbed of racism. And racists and racism and racist behaviour and so on were everywhere. And this is a terrible thing, and it was a recent thing, and it's only wokeism that's come and sort of stopped that. But at the same time, racism has morphed into something else, to be minorities not achieving equal outcomes with wealthy, successful white people, and so on. So the definitions are constantly jumping around, so that the globalist forces of destroying Western social cohesion can always point to, look, racism, it's Hitler, and when in fact they're now. Let's just have a look at this racism, because even a channel like History Debunked, and I'm not that much younger than the guy who does the channel. I doubt I'm even 10 years or so younger than him. So, we grew up in similar eras and in very similar cultures and societies, and the racism that he imagines that he saw everywhere, and that others, by the way, it's not simply him, others say, racism used to be so bad, racism. But I don't remember that as a kid. If it was around, then it must have gone way over my head. But I guess definitions really matter here to Simon, and on his channel, he seems to think a racist utterance, such as using the N word, which is a derivative of the Latin word meaning black. Or other words that I don't want to use them here. I mean, I may get in trouble with YouTube here, but a four-letter word starting with C and ending in N, and in Australia there are words that were started with a J and ended it with an O, and this sort of thing, and to describe people who were not white. But if you look at the novels of Somerset Maugham, and the use of, as he used slang words to describe, people in the Mediterranean area of Europe, and those sort of words beginning with W and ending in G and things like that. These were slang words that were thrown around, not as expressions of hatred, or even expressions of seething contempt or something like that. They were slang expressions. And by the way, all those people have expressions for white folks, which are, certainly derogatory anyway. So this idea that any word, such as the N word, it was purely, totally, and absolutely an expression of extreme hatred that was utterly irrational, and it was just because someone had a different skin color. That's bullshit. That is total and absolute bullshit. Those words were casually thrown around. I remember them. They were casually thrown around. But were they expressions of hatred and malice born of, again, that guy's got a different skin color, I'm going to, no, I don't ever remember that. If it did exist, then it I didn't notice it, nor do I know anyone that noticed it, nor do I remember it was expressed at the time. Now, in Australia, there was in the, I don't know, about 1970, I suppose, there was quite a lot of migration, or even before that, migration from places like, say, during the Lebanese Civil War, the Lebanese Christians were migrating to Australia, or there was various discord in places like Malta, where they kind of had an overpopulation issue in a small island, so they wanted to get rid of the people. So they again, Maltese, usually of the Arabic, particularly the Arabic sort of extraction of Maltese, were coming to Australia, but also from other places, Greece and Italy, and the people from Greece and Italy tend to be the peasant people. So, rural peasants on rural farms, that sort of thing. So those were the people coming. So it's a lot of, and they tended to be quite a bit more swarthy than, say, the northern Italians. So they were coming to Australia, and there were, various words, slang terms used to describe. But do I remember any racial hate, as in just that, just solely and exclusively, you are a different color, therefore I hate you, because that's the definition of racism. It has no basis in any rationality, and I don't recall that ever being in existence. Could you, if you search around, could you find someone that maybe did think that way? Well, sure. And similarly, any sort of racism that you might think went both ways. The idea it was just the white folks that may have been doing it, had the slang terms or the derogatory terms. Then no, that came the other way. And the white society was a very different society from the ones they'd come from. And so the rule of law and due legal process and a public transport system that worked and functioned, and all the sort of administrative or operational side of Western white society. These people weren't used to any of that, and they were sort of quite surprised by it, and I don't think fitted in very well. Now, separating the idea of you hate someone because anyone may hate someone else simply because of their skin color. And I don't believe that sort of racism did exist. If it did exist, it was extremely rare. But did they have an issue with different behaviours, substantially different behaviour? Not just somebody from, I don't know, Lebanon comes along and says, "Gee, these guys can make the buses run on time. I fucking hate them for that." No, I don't mean that sort of thing. I'm talking about behaviour as in interpersonal sort of behaviour. And as a kid, I noticed many differences, behavioural differences. But I don't remember thinking of the skin color differences. There were, say, Fijian Indians, for example, things like that. And I don't remember even thinking about skin color. Wasn't something that I recall even crossed my mind. Chinese people, whatever. I didn't think about it. Did others think about it? Well, maybe, but I don't recall anyone talking about it. Or mentioning it, but was the behavioural difference? Did that stand out? Well, yes, it did. Particularly with children, that I've mentioned this in a number of videos before. The Arabic kids of Arabic extraction, in particular, had very different views, attitudes, and behaviours to others, and there was a certain malice in their behaviour that I found hard to understand. For example, they would take great delight in arriving as a gang and beating up other kids, primarily white kids, to take their lunch money or their bus fare money or something like that. They used to stand around where there are some stairs coming up from where the classrooms were into the school playground sort of thing, and then they all seem to have strange respiratory problems, these people, and they would hack up some pretty green sort of liquid and body fluids, and then spit it onto people as they were going by. They would go to people's school bags and hack into their sandwiches and put them back into the bag, and then take great delight in watching the person eat the sandwich. And they would defecate, and they had no problem just pulling down their pants and defecating in the middle of the change room in the sports area, and then trying to grab kids and push them into the turd and this sort of stuff. And they absolutely loved this, and would gather together in groups, laughing uproariously when they push someone into the turd. And the other thing, they had attitudes about communal ownership, so they thought nothing of stealing in classes like carpentry or those sorts of things. They had which were compulsory in I think the first and second year of high school. They had no qualms about stealing tools and bits and from the class. None whatsoever. They said, "Look, it was in class. I'm allowed to use it here. Why can't I steal it?" So they had an attitude to communal usage and communal ownership that that they couldn't seem to conceive private ownership. They really struggled with that concept, which I thought was, well, it's not complicated. Why are you struggling with it? And so they seem to be always stealing things. Now that's a behavioural difference that the local white kids noticed. Why do you have to steal anything that isn't nailed down? The medical cabinet in the carpentry room, they would just casually go up, open the door, and start filling their pockets with whatever was in there. And if the teacher caught them at it or got them, they would demand, no, it's mine. I can take that if I want. Why are you trying to stop me? And then there would be, I witnessed more than one punch up with the teacher and the Arabic kid trying to stuff his, and so on and so forth. I mean, I could go on here, but I think you get the picture. So behaviour was very different. Now that meant that given there were so many of them that behaved, not all, but so many behaved this way, maybe not even the majority, but certainly a very sizable minority, given they behaved this way, then they were treated differently. Now today you say, they were treated differently because they were dark brown. Yeah, they were brown. That's why you're racist, Nazi. No, it wasn't that. It never was that. Never was that. It was the behavioural difference, and that alone that made the difference. And why they were treated differently was because they behaved very differently. I remember kids walking up one side of the stairs going up to the playground area, or the quadrangle as it's called, because they didn't want to be spat on by the word used was W. It began with W and was 3 letters, but would go up the other side of the stair just so they wouldn't be spat on. I remember it was a constant refrain. Kids would say, has anyone hacked on my back? Kids would go around in school asking, can you check my back to make sure no one spat a big greenie on it or something, and so on it went. So these were differences. I remember checking my sandwiches to see, just to make sure that I hadn't gone into my school bag when I wasn't looking and added some bodily fluids to my sandwiches. Now this is very unusual, strange behaviour, but it meant these people were treated differently because of it. But it had nothing to do with racism at all. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.